Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business here at day 2 at the CECU Annual Career College Convention in Indianapolis, Indiana, where we purposefully and intentionally celebrate the great work that our career colleges are doing for students all across this country and internationally in many respects, and give voice to those that have something to say. And we're really honored to be here thanks to the great generosity and partnership of our sponsor, Lead Squared. And I've got somebody from Lead Squared with me as my co-host today. Let's get him in now. I'm not sure he's awake. We're going to wake him up. He's Douglas Carlson. He's head of partnerships at Lead Squared. Wake up, Douglas. What's going on? How are you?
Oh, man, that was better than coffee. That was great. I'm also drinking coffee. It is 8 a.m. at a day 2 of a conference, and I'm really impressed looking around. Everyone is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, which is impressive.
I was wondering who scheduled an 8 a.m. podcast. Like, who is the scheduler on these? And give me his phone number so I can call and yell at him. Is this Douglas Carlson that scheduled
This was my fault, and so our guests, I will give a big thank you to being here.
All right, Douglas, enough of that. Let's get him in right now, our guest. Let's see. Let me tee something up for him here. Here we go. He's Jim Bologa. He's president and CEO of Porter and Chester Institute. Jim, welcome to an EdUp Mike. How are you?
I'm doing awesome.
Entrance music, first thing, 8 a.m. How do you like that?
I like it. I like the walk-on music.
Although
I like Doug's a little bit better. Mine was a little too soft. Yeah, there you go.
I told him he's the only one that gets that one. But anyway, welcome to the podcast. And, we're honored to have you here as a president and CEO of Career College, serving students that need to be served, right? This is a critical sector of higher education. Tell us about Porter and Chester Institute. Who do you serve? How do you serve them?
Yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity. Porter and Chester Institute's been around since 1946. So we've been around for almost 8 decades. And we started in Connecticut and have branched out to Massachusetts. And about 10 years ago, we bought another school called YTI Career Institute in Pennsylvania. And our programs, generally speaking, our programs are around skilled construction trade. So if you want to become a plumber, an electrician, an HVAC tech, an electronics technician, we also have an automotive program. And then we've got, we originally founded as a engineering design school for veterans coming back from the Second World War. And that's how we first started in 1946. And so we've got a program that's still dedicated to that, which has got some 3D modeling in it. And so it's pretty, we've tried to keep it obviously updated and up with the times. It's a pretty cool program. And then we've got a computer networking program, and then we've got some healthcare programs. So we've got medical assisting, dental assisting, and a practical nurse program. And those vocations or those careers basically run our country every day. So no matter where your day takes you, you're going to be involved in one of those aspects. And we're very excited about that. Our student population generally ranges from right out of high school up until I would say probably mid-50s. Believe it or not, we have folks who are changing careers. I recently met somebody who was 55 years old and was in the legal profession for a number of years, and during COVID got let go and decided he wanted to become an electrician. So
amazing!
It's pretty cool. And then on the YTI Career Institute side in Pennsylvania, we've got some cool programs there. So if you want to become a veterinary technician or a vet nurse, we also have a radiology therapist program, and also a respiratory therapy program. So we've got some really neat healthcare programs. And again, becoming a respiratory technician during COVID was really paramount. And then we do have a culinary school. And I think that's probably, we have about 20 programs, again, all sort of themed around healthcare, construction trades, and a little bit of transportation.
For anyone who's listening, I'm not sure if the mics are picking it up, but Van Halen is going to be playing, sounds like for the next 3 minutes of this episode, just is perfect for Jim because he's just, thrashing right now. He's killing it. I talk about career colleges. You don't know that you need the students who graduate from a career college until you try to go do something. And I remember when I was in California a couple of years ago, you could not find an electrician. They were booking out 3-4 months in advance. It's like you can't just get somebody to come over and fix my light. There's such a demand for these trade programs and these skills. And also at the same time, a lot of people that tell you how to run your business. How do you balance that? You've got to train these people, but at the same time, you've got to manage the external.
Yeah, I mean, for us, literally, there's not a week that doesn't go by that I don't get a phone call from an employer, and every one of them is really looking for entry level talent to come into the organization. And I think the broader narrative for us, at least in our markets and I think across the country, is that these are very viable career paths. This isn't a consolation prize. It's really, if you want to, if you've got some interest in learning a trade, in a matter of, I would say 5 to 7 to 10 years, you could have your own business if you're really that motivated. And we actually have, a number of cases where we had prospective students come to us. They were actually at a public institution pursuing, bachelor's degrees in engineering, and one of their friends was in our electrical program, and the two brothers both dropped out, sophomores in traditional education, came to our program. It's only 1 year in length, and so it's relatively a low risk. In my opinion, it's a low risk proposition, 1 year versus 4. And the opportunity cost being those 3 years in between. And they actually graduated from our program. They now have their own electrical contracting business, and they're running, I think, 8 trucks. And
oh, wow.
It's actually pretty impressive. And they were, you could tell when you met them
they're going to do something.
They had a plan, and they weren't shy about sharing that with us. And one of the things that we are introducing right now is we have what we're calling our entrepreneurial program, and that's really catered towards anybody who has learned a skill who wants to come back to us and learn the basics of business.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So we and that's really sort of stemmed out of the conversations with students who've said, hey, I've just become a licensed electrician or a licensed HVAC technician. I'm thinking about starting a business, and it would be great if I could get some additional education. And I think that's one of the really attractive things about the higher ed market, at least on, with regards to our programs, is that it's something that you can buy along the way as you need it. And we're getting some additional insight from folks in healthcare who, start as an individual contributor, either in a medical office or a dental office, or, in some sort of a long-term care facility, and then they want to move up into management. And so, they're asking for some, additional administrative skills and managerial skills. And so we're constantly just looking to our alumni as a source of, ideas and innovation. And by staying close to them, that's been helpful for us. Again, the employment base and the workforce in general is really in dire need of folks who basically pursue our careers.
That's really, the career laddering is really interesting. And I love the 2 paths, right? Because it sounds like in that year program, you have to learn the basics of and make sure that you have the skill set for the practical trade. Mm-hmm. But the whole point, though, is if you want to then go on and start your own business, you need that extra step. So that's brilliant to build on. And then for folks who want to ladder up in their career, I think it's so smart what you're doing to listen to the market. And also, like anything else, it's always easier to sell to / bring back a student rather than find a new student. Or at least I'd suspect that'd be the case.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that our alumni appreciate the fact that we're constantly trying to find new ideas or new ways for them to maybe continue with their lifelong learning.
Yeah.
And I think for most of us, myself, when I remember, I graduated college, and I sort of view myself as a brother or of electrician trade or HVAC trade. I'm a CPA by education and training, And I had to basically go to school, learn a trade, learn a skill, learn a vocation,
Yeah.
and then I had to be an apprentice for a couple of years. I had to take a national exam, and and then here we are. And again, a lot of the skilled trades are very much like that. And so I think for the interesting thing for me is I have 3 kids. They all went to traditional college. They're thank goodness they're all very, very successful. They picked good majors, and that led to employment. So I'm super excited about
you did the dad checkbox.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Their career decisions have been good so far, and and I talk to a lot of folks. I think the biggest hurdle I see is people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And I would say that there's generations that have not been exposed to, I'll just say, career college or these vocations, and I think as these next couple generations come through, it's really up to all of us to try to get the message out there. And again, there's guys like Mike Rowe and other people talking about skilled trades and about these professions. And I talk to my friends and say, it's really, as a family making a decision, it's really a low risk proposition.
Sure.
I mean, again, I know it's all relative, but you come to our school for 1 year, spend, let's just say roughly, $30,000 to $35,000, and that's on the high end if you're taking a skilled trade program. You're risking 1 year,
Yeah.
and you come out a year later with actually tangible skills that you can apply immediately in the workforce.
Sure. Employable skills.
Employable skills.
Yeah, it's kind of like the job, what do they call it? Shovel ready for projects. It's job ready for students.
Yeah, and you compare that, and again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong, but you compare that with a student who is going to go to a 4-year program and not really quite sure what they want to do.
Yeah.
It becomes a very expensive proposition. I mean, you look at and even a state school, a reasonably priced state school, you're probably in the 40K a year range, with housing and everything else, and I just don't know that families are willing to make that investment to help their son or daughter find themselves. I think a lot of families that we talk to are, they've already done some research and they're asking a lot of really good questions. But I still think the challenge for us, as an industry, is to get out there and really let folks know that these are viable, very viable careers, and they lead to employment almost immediately. If you, again, for us, our graduates generally are leaving school with a job. We hold career fairs, and we have sort of an internal commitment to ourselves that we want every student leaving with a job in their career, and we work really hard at that. And it's very rewarding, to see that happen. And we do have folks who'll come back and share their stories with us. And it's great to be able to, at the end of the day, to contribute to a community and see that success.
I like that.
Well, and I'm also really curious about how things have changed over the last few years. What I mean specifically, so you referenced Jim Rowe, kind of bringing more attention to the space and how important it is. I don't think there's anybody today that would say, "Wow, we have enough electricians." Like it's a universal experience. We know we need that trade. At least my understanding is with the kind of at least the sort of the 16, 18, 20-year-old generation, there's been a shift in how they perceive the trades. And it's almost shifted from, oh, wow, like that's maybe not as desirable, to actually being desirable. And I venture maybe even cool in some regards. So, and I hesitate to say that because I'm objectively not cool. But I'd be curious, have you seen that arc? Have opinions changed? Has it given
or
you
demand?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we're starting to see an uptick. I think the younger generation sees value in being able to do some tangible things at the end of a given day.
Yeah.
And feel good about the fact that they're contributing to a bigger project. And and I would say that the younger generation students are starting to migrate that way. And I think part of the reason they are migrating is because, again, they feel some intrinsic value in being able to contribute to a project or contribute to successful service in a given day, and you can walk away knowing that you're part of something bigger.
Tell them like it is.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too that's also competing here is the just the overarching debt. I'll just say the affordability issue of higher ed, traditional higher ed, and I think families are looking at this and they're starting to make really, I think, good academic life in educational funding decisions around what avenue they're going to take. And so I think they're balancing all those things out.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think the younger generation is a bit, there's been all the student debt conversation for the last, probably 10 years, in terms of it reaching $1 trillion and that's been, a headline story. But I think that from what we see, students, there is a shift without question. And, we spend a lot of time trying to cultivate relationships in high schools. We actually have a really very short program called our Career Exploration Program. And what we do is we go out to local high schools and basically share this with either the vocational teachers or the guidance counselors, or the principals or the superintendents, and we say, look, we know that you don't have the funding to support vocational arts in the school.
Sure.
So what we're willing to do is enter into a very short-term period of time where we'll take the kids out for basically an hour, at the end of the day, and we'll run them through, all the
Such
programs.
a good idea.
And so they come in, and that again, in electrical, we'll have them bend conduit. We'll have them pull some wire. We'll have them connect some wires. They'll actually see oh wow, there's actually something that happens when I flip the switch. I kind of make the connection now that the light comes on.
Just like I promised, right?
Yeah, and and again, I think for a lot of us, you get to the point where you just assume. You make assumptions and you don't know what you don't know, and I think that a lot of these the younger generation is actually being inspired by being able to contribute to the day-to-day activities of what runs the country every day.
Well, and one of the really fun things about this podcast and being able to ultimately broadcast here at CQ is giving the sort of the broad expanse of everything that is vocational education. So one of the pieces we have not heard that you have, and I'm really curious to have you tell us a little bit more about it, is actually veterinary technician and veterinary nursing.
Yeah.
That's one. So forgive me, I came from Penn Foster, so I know that background really well. But it's also one that I haven't heard many people talk about at the show today. So I'd wonder if you could give us a little bit of background on that. How big of that program is, those sort of pieces, and why it's important.
Yeah, so we offer that program out of our York, Pennsylvania campus. That program caters to both small animals as well as large animals.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, like many of us, we had to pivot to some form of online and/or hybrid education in terms of the delivery model. And what we did with regards to that program was we moved it to basically what I'll call a more hybrid delivery. So again, think lecture online and then lab on ground, and clinical on ground. And so what we've done is the students are basically doing their work during the course of the week in terms of, I'll just call it their classroom instruction. And then what they'll do is they'll either show up to our campus or they'll show up to a clinical site to do their lab and clinical work. And we've got relationships with large animal farms. So again, these students are going to be working on cows, horses, pigs,
outstanding
things like that. And in central Pennsylvania, where there's a fair amount of agriculture, that works out great for us. And what I would say is that, just going to the overall workforce trends, we've been approached by a major veterinary hospital system across the country to look at trying to partner with them because they want to take all their vet assistants and have them become vet techs or vet
upskilling
nurse.
them, yeah?
Yeah, they want to provide basically a career path for them because, again, they recognize how difficult it is to acquire an employee, and especially if it's a good employee, they want to create a growth and career development path for them. So, and we've got a lot of cool things that we've been doing where we're getting approached by employers now directly along this similar path. So, for example, we just had a relationship with a large defense contractor who basically is building nuclear subs.
That's neat.
Yeah, and so we started a welding program, and we actually just worked with them and a few other people in one of the areas of the armed services to come up with a national welding school as it relates to the protocols that they need their welders to have the competencies that they need to have to be able to work on. I'll just say Navy-related ship.
You better watch what you say now. Your security clearance.
Right. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the space, and I do think employers are recognizing that they're not getting what they need from higher ed in general, and they're now starting to reach out. And again, we have another defense contractor in our market who's reached out to us. Their 3 best production workers building jet engines came from our school.
Oh, no kidding.
So we were fortunate that we had 3 graduates who were highly mechanically inclined, but also learned, I'll say, lower voltage electrical in our low voltage program, and so they're able to assist on the production floor with keeping equipment running. And so the management team there got very inspired by that. So they came over to our school one day and say, "Hey, we need our own program just like this. We want to pick these courses." And so we've been doing that. I'll call it contract training for them as well, and where we're basically just upskilling their existing workforce. Yeah. So I think, again, I think the
good revenue stream.
No, absolutely, and I think that the workforce, and the employers in the workforce are starting to recognize that if they want to secure their futures, they need to really think about education and training in a whole different way. And with where we're at in the generations moving through the workforce, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that is not documented, and many of them are very, very, very worried that once these folks retire and go out, that institutional knowledge around either a product or a service is gone.
Yeah,
and the longtime employees are the ones that are leaving, and you have the newer generations are a little bit more transient with the way they move between companies.
Yeah.
Were you going to say?
No, please keep going.
I was just going to note that shift, right? Back in the old days in career education, the hustling of trying to find employers, take our graduates. Let us convince you why these graduates are valuable and take them, to, hey, we've got graduates. Do you want good employees? There has been that shift, right? Because good people are hard to find these days. Employers just cannot hire. I have not spoken to an employer on this podcast or through just my regular day-to-day that has said, we've got enough people, we're great. It's completely opposite of that.
Yeah, no, it's. I think that's the trend in the country right now. I mean, we've got basically a career skills gap, but it's really I think there's probably sufficient people. I think it's just a mismatch.
Right.
So we don't have the right people, and so I think again, trying to expose more people to what it's like to be an electrician, or what it's like to be an HVAC tech, or an auto tech, or a vet tech, also a vet nurse, or a practical nurse, or a respiratory therapist. I think it's really a messaging issue, I think, for our sector, or our piece of the higher ed sector, that we need to do a better job communicating, in our own communities in a grassroots way, because again, I get calls every week. I went to get my oil changed at the local dealership, and I go there just to talk to the folks on, who are in the workforce, and the manager there said, our best technician is a guy that graduated from your school in like 2004.
Surprise!
And he's like, I need 5 technicians right now.
That's got to be gratifying to hear that.
Yeah. Well, it's actually pretty cool because every now and again he'll work on my car, and they do a little video of their inspection. So they're using a little bit of video in the actual inspection of the car. And so it's always sort of cool. And again, I go back and thank him for all his service, because he's actually also come back and talked to students and
That's awesome.
let them know, what it's like, a few years out from school. And, and I think, one of the interesting things that I think he's shared with the students is, look, when you come to school for a year, I mean, you've got foundational knowledge. You have to, if you really want to be, a successful automotive technician, you have to continue to learn and grow. And,
Sure.
And I think for a lot of folks, I think that the whole concept of, I've got my piece of paper, if you will, and I'm done. The car, I've been in the space now for almost 2 decades. And when I started, I think maybe 30% of a car was electronic.
Yeah.
Today now we have electric cars, and in most gas-powered cars are probably, 90%, electronic. And, and he talks about how he had to go back to, school. Because again, when he learned, it was predominantly mechanical.
Sure.
And, and I think for young people, the challenge for them is, back in the day, you could borrow a box of tools from your grandfather, or an uncle or your dad, because again, it was predominantly male dominated. And you could work on a car, because it was predominantly mechanical. Today, the younger generation, it's very, very difficult because, again, you've got to have an OBDC driver, you got to be able to connect into the computer system. Generally, you have to have a bit more technology. You have to have the manufacturer codes, in terms of the error codes or the areas to go look. And so it's just so much more complicated for, I think, the younger folks to get involved. And so consequently, you don't have folks working on their cars to the same degree that you once did, in your driveway. I mean, people used to change their own oil. They would change their own, maybe transmission fluid. I mean, there were a lot of things that they would do that folks just don't do. But that's part of this generational sort of void we've created by removing, any exposure whatsoever to vocational programs, through either middle and or high school. I vaguely remember, going to metal shop and wood shop, when I was like in probably 7th grade.
This is lunacy.
And getting some exposure to, doing some of those things that you could do. I mean, and think about this generation trying to own homes. I mean, it's
inconceivable.
The cost of home ownership now, especially just the basic repairs. If you don't have the expertise or have been exposed to that, it can get expensive fast,
Big time.
and you don't know if you're really getting a good quality job either. And so, again, obviously you rely on, people around you who have used, people, but I'm just simply saying it's there's always the chance, of that not getting quality work done. And so, and again, I think that this generation, the younger generations I think they're intrigued by this. I think, there are issues having grown up in a tech world, if you will, where, they see a lot of I'll just say the bad things that happen to friends and family, through social media. And, it's unfortunate, but, again, it's interesting, listening to some of them, tell their stories about people, saying and doing things they'd never do in person because they can hide behind a screen.
Right.
So.
Well, we encourage everyone to check out Porter and Chester Institute at porterchester.edu. Jim, it's been an honor having you here. Of course, my co-pilot. First, I'll outro you. He's Douglas Carlson, head of partnerships at Lead Square, the company that helped bring us here to CQ to interview our great friend. Let's see, I didn't do you right the first time you said, so let's do this. He's Jim Bologa. He's president and CEO at Porter and Chester Institute. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.